Greetings. Today we are going to talk about the bind process and what that does, what it is, what it means. Now what we are going to focus on today is getting the app, the TQI controller, and both units all bound together so you can use the actual app. Which that is a different process than if you're just trying to use just the starting line and finish line, doing heads up straight out of the box, which those instructions are in this book, and we're not going to go over those because it's a little bit different process. Because normally just out of the box, what you're going to do is you're going to if you have to, because normally the units should come back pre-bound from Traxxas. Now that being said, obviously Traxxas, they're not making these units anymore, so if you're getting a used one from somewhere, you might have to just rebind it, and it's very basic on binding the finish line with the starting line, and that's, like I said, in this book, and talks about this manual you can download from Traxxas' website as well. But the process on that is a little bit different than what we're going to do, because what we're going to do is we're going to try to get everything bound together. Binding, we're going to talk about the word binding. Any of us RC guys, you kind of know what that is. You're binding two components together, such as a radio and a receiver. It's kind of like having the binding versus linking. Binding is getting or obtaining the house key. Linking is using it. So, that being said, Traxxas has stepped through, kind of lengthy a little bit, on how to make this work with the TQI controller and the app. But it does work. It's just a little bit of process. I'll probably put the link in the description to Traxxas' website. Might even download it as a PDF and post it out there as well. But the process, what they do is they talk about binding, the word binding and linking, which, basically that's what I said earlier. Binding is like acquiring a house key. Linking is actually using it. So you have to, this is all done before you can even race with it. So if you get a new unit and you're trying to use the Bluetooth in the app, this is the steps that you have to go through, and they've got it set down or stepped into 3 different steps. But as you can see, hopefully you can see, each step has a little process to it. So it's not lengthy, but you just have to step through these steps to get it to work. So what we're going to do is we're going to step through each one of these to get, of course this is already bound together, so we're just kind of rebinding. We're stepping back through this unit. So the first thing we're going to do, step 1, we're going to bind the TQI transmitter to the DTS1 starting line console. So they're saying we're binding this unit to this unit, okay? Now it says starting line, but as you step through this, because you have to do this part twice, when you first step through it, you're going to bind the controller with the finish line. And what that does from that point is it'll establish a link, and it'll look at what's called the firmware on the unit to see if it needs updating. This unit's already been updated, but we're going to go ahead and step through it as well. So it says hold the set button on the TQI transmitter as you switch it on, and then we'll release the set button. The transmitter is now in bind mode, so you got to put this in a bind mode. And we're not talking about the Bluetooth bind, we're talking about the radio, the TQI itself. So what we'll do is we'll hold the set button. It says hold the set button and turn on the radio. Now if you notice, we're in bind mode. We have a red blinking light. So now that we're in the bind mode here, we're going to hold the set button on the finish line console as you switch it on and release the set button. The console is now in bind mode, so you're setting your finish line. So we'll hold the set button down and we'll release it. If you notice, we have a rapid blinking light. It didn't really talk about this, but I think we should have opened the app first, but we'll go ahead and open the app and I'll show you a little bit of difference here, maybe. Let's back up just a little bit. Okay, so to continue with what I had been talking about this bind process, I had to back up a little bit and shift the TQI controller to use my phone. That way I could still have this open and we could go through this and watch what should happen. So let's go back to the beginning here. Step one, we are binding everything together, and we're going to bind the TQI transmitter to the starting line console. But you're going to do the finish line first. We're going to check for updates. I'm going to show you what it looks like on the device and what you would see, and then we'll redo steps 1 through 5 to the starting line console. So, first thing we're going to do is we're going to hold the set button and power on the transmitter. So, set button. This is after you open the app, of course. So, we've opened the app. Now we have the set button and turn the power on. Now we're going to turn hold the set button and turn the power on with the finish line. Now if you'll notice from this part, you're going to see 2 green lights and it says DTF. That's the DTS finish line. It gives the battery. This is where it would pop out and it would say, oh, you need to update your firmware. And you would have to normally, that could be a 20-minute process, but it would ask you if you want to do it, because what it's doing is it's checking the firmware on this finish line through here, and the app itself is updating it, and you would tap yes, and it would run the update. So this is kind of what it looks like. It's telling you that we're currently the finish line unit, which is running the latest firmware. So it did check with that. It did bind with that. We're going to redo process 1 through 5 on the starting line now. Okay. So then you turn all this off. And we still got the app open. If you notice, we don't have the communications anymore. But we're going to check the bind process with the starting line now. So we're going to hold the set button on, turn the transmitter on. So we're in bind mode, and the same thing is we're going to hold the set button, which is the top or the middle button, and we'll hold that and turn the starting line on. Now, if you notice here, it says DTS, which stands for the starting line, and it's okay. It would ask you the same thing on whether or not it wants to be updated or not. Like I said, I've already done this, so the firmware's already updated. So once we do this step, we've bound the starting line and the finish line to the TQI controller. So the next step we're going to do is step 2, and we're going to bind the starting line console with the finish line console. Okay? So turn everything off. Now this process is a little bit different than what you find here in the book. Here in the book, I believe you do the start line first and then the finish line, or it's backwards, needless to say. So what we're going to do is we're going to hold the start button and the starting line console, and we're going to switch it on, and we're going to release the set button. So we're going to do the starting line, and then we'll do the finish line. Okay? So we'll hold the set button and power on the starting line. Okay, then we're getting a red blinky light, which means the starting line's in bind mode. We're going to do the same thing with the finish line. Now, if you'll notice that we had 2 green lights and 1 amber light over here, and that means the units are talking together. Once we get to that part, the units are linked together. You can power them off now. Okay. Now the next step we're going to do is we're going to link the DTS1 start line and finish line console. So this goes back to almost that 6-step process where it says we're going to power on the starting line, press and hold the set button on the console, and it's going to beep twice and then release, and then we're going to power on the finish line console. Note the consoles must be switched on within 10 seconds. Well, that 10 seconds is a little bit long, I think. So from this point, we should be able to redo the 6-step process, and it should link up. So we'll try it again here since we're on the phone. We're going to open the app. Okay, so I got the app open. We're going to turn on the transmitter. Got a green light. We're going to turn on the starting line. Green light. We're going to hold twice, or hold till 2 beeps. Then we're going to turn on the finish line. So I got green lights here and here. We're going to go to the DTS unit, and we're going to go to diagnostics, and we're going to see. Obviously, the finish line and the starting line are talking to each other. We got current temperatures and current battery levels, so that means everything is bound together. So this third step that Traxxas had, I just kind of go from that third step to the 6-step process that I created. But that's how you bind everything together, starting with step 1. So you basically bind everything to this, and then you get this bound to your app. So anyways, hope that's I know it's a little bit confusing, but once you step through this process, you should be back at the simple 6-step throw down and erase process.